Imagine holding the power to decide the fate of a child, with nothing but your words. No evidence. No witnesses. No way to prove who was lying and who was telling the truth. 3,000 years ago, one king faced exactly this moment. Two women stood before him, each claiming to be a mother. Only one was telling the truth, and the king had seconds to find her. What he did next has been studied by scholars, kings, and philosophers for thousands of years. It wasn't a trial. It wasn't an interrogation. It was something far stranger, and far more brilliant. This is the story of the wisest decision ever recorded. And by the end you'll understand why it still matters today. A king with no proof. A crime with no witnesses. And a decision so strange it exposed the truth instantly. This is not a courtroom drama invented for entertainment. This happened. And it happened because one man understood something about human nature that no law book could teach him. To understand what made this moment so extraordinary, you have to understand the man at the center of it. His name was Solomon, son of King David, the third king of Israel. He inherited a kingdom that had just come through decades of war, rebellion, and uncertainty. His father had spent a lifetime uniting the 12 tribes and securing the throne through battle after battle. Solomon inherited peace, but peace is its own kind of test. A young king with no wars to win still had to prove he was capable of leading a nation. He had wealth beyond measure. Trade routes stretching across the ancient world. Alliances with neighboring kingdoms. By almost any measure, Solomon had already succeeded before his reign even truly began. But wealth was never what defined him. According to the account in the first book of Kings, early in his reign, Solomon traveled to the city of Gibeon to offer sacrifices, and that night, God appeared to him in a dream and made an extraordinary offer. Ask for whatever you want and I will give it to you. Think about that offer for a moment. Unlimited. No conditions. Anything a king could possibly desire, laid open before him. Most rulers in his position would have asked for military strength, or long life, or riches to rival every kingdom around them. Solomon asked for none of it. Instead, he asked for a heart that could understand, the wisdom to tell the difference between right and wrong so that he could govern his people justly. He described himself, remarkably, not as a powerful king, but as a child who didn't yet know how to lead. That single request would define the rest of his reign. And it set the stage for the moment that would make him legendary. Not long after, two women arrived at the palace, desperate for an audience with the king. They lived in the same house. Both were mothers. Both had given birth to sons within days of each other. But now only one baby remained alive, and both women claimed him as their own. The first woman stood before Solomon and told her story. She said that during the night the other woman's child had died. And while she slept, unaware, the woman took her living son and secretly placed her own dead child beside her instead. The second woman denied every word. She insisted the living child was hers, and that the first woman was lying to hide her own loss. There were no witnesses, no records, no way to test either claim through evidence. Just two grieving voices standing in the same room, each insisting the exact same thing. The living child is mine. Picture that scene for a moment. Two mothers raw with grief and fear. A courtroom with no proof to examine. And a king expected to deliver a verdict that could not be undone. Any ordinary ruler might have simply guessed, chosen a side, hoped he was right. Half the surrounding kingdoms settled disputes exactly that way, through the authority of the throne alone, with no deeper method of finding the truth. But Solomon did something no one in that room expected. He called for a sword. Imagine the silence that must have fallen over the palace in that moment. A sword brought into a dispute over a living child. What could the king possibly intend to do with it? Solomon gave his command. Divide the living child in two. Give half to one woman and half to the other. Sounds shocking. It even sounds cruel on the surface. But this is the exact moment that reveals everything, not just about this story but about the nature of true wisdom itself. Watch what happens next. The first woman, the one who had lied, agreed instantly to the king's judgment. "Divide him," she said. "Let neither of us have him whole." But the second woman broke completely. She cried out in anguish, begging the king to stop, pleading with him to give the living child to the other woman, whole and unharmed, rather than see any harm come to him at all. In that single moment, Solomon had his answer. He had never intended to harm the child. Not for a second. He understood something far deeper than either woman standing before him realized. He knew that only a true mother would surrender her own claim entirely, if it meant saving her child's life. The sword was never a weapon that day. It was a mirror, reflecting the truth hidden inside each woman's heart, in a way no interrogation ever could. Solomon ordered that the baby be placed in the arms of the woman who begged for his life. She was his mother. The deception hidden for so long was exposed, not through evidence, not through threats, but through love itself, responding exactly as love always does. Word of this judgment spread quickly across the entire kingdom. According to the biblical account, when the people of Israel heard what the king had decided, they were struck with awe. They recognized that the wisdom guiding Solomon's decisions came from God himself, and from that day forward, they looked at their young king differently. But here's the question worth sitting with long after the story ends. Why did this particular method work? Solomon didn't rely on clever questioning. He didn't try to trap either woman in a lie through cross-examination. Instead, he created a single situation that forced the truth to reveal itself naturally, without either woman even realizing what was happening. He understood something timeless about human nature, that real love doesn't calculate outcomes. It doesn't posture or protect itself first. It reacts instinctively, even when that instinct comes at enormous personal cost. That is the secret hidden at the very center of this story. Wisdom was never only about knowing facts, or gathering enough evidence to reach a logical conclusion. It was about understanding people. Understanding what truly moves the human heart when everything else is stripped away. This is what Scripture calls discernment. Not simply intelligence and not cleverness either, but a God-given ability to see beneath the surface of any situation, straight to what is real. Solomon didn't out-argue either woman that day. He didn't need to. He simply created the space for truth to reveal itself on its own. And this connects to something far bigger than one dispute over one child. Throughout Scripture, wisdom is never described as something a person can manufacture entirely on their own, through study or intellect alone. It's consistently described as a gift, something given generously by God to those who genuinely seek it with humility. Solomon didn't ask for wisdom because he already possessed it. He became wise because he was willing to ask, and willing to admit he didn't already have the answers. That distinction still matters today, perhaps more than ever. Most of us will never be asked to settle a dispute with a sword raised over a child. But every one of us faces moments that demand real discernment. Moments where the truth is buried beneath layers of emotion, self-interest, or fear. Moments in our relationships, in our leadership, in the quiet decisions we make when no one else is watching, where the right path isn't obvious, and the easiest answer isn't necessarily the right one. Solomon's story teaches something that hasn't aged in 3,000 years. True wisdom often isn't about arriving with every answer already prepared. It's about creating the conditions where truth and love are free to reveal themselves honestly. It's about learning to look past the noise of a situation, straight to what actually matters underneath it. And maybe that's exactly why this story still resonates so deeply after all this time. It was never really about a courtroom or a king or even a child. It was about what happens when we set aside pride and self-interest, and allow love to guide our choices instead, even when it costs us everything we thought we wanted to keep. Before we close, if this story moved you, take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who could use a reminder of what real wisdom looks like. We'd love to hear in the comments which part of Solomon's story spoke to you the most. And if you'd like more journeys like this one, Consider subscribing to Arkstone Bible and turning on notifications so you never miss the next story from Scripture. Thousands of years later, the sword Solomon called for that day was never meant to divide a child. It was meant to reveal a mother's love, and in doing so, it revealed the wisdom of God Himself.